Hello. Today's topic is going to be why focusing on yourself is inherently a good thing and not something selfish, like many people want to make you believe probably, and why self-improvement is inherently a good thing that is for the benefit of all, in essence. But without further ado, let's begin. So first of all, what does good even mean? Before we can argue if self-improvement is a good thing, we have to agree on what good actually is. And a fitting definition for good would be that your thoughts, deeds, and words minimize the suffering for you and society as a whole. And bad, in contrast, would be thoughts, words, and deeds that create suffering for you and society as a whole. The thing is, you are a member of society anyway, so when you suffer or when you do not suffer, you add a little bit of yourself to the society. And happiness in general can be defined as the absence of personal suffering. You are happy when you do not suffer. You are at peace in that case. And having good thoughts, doing good deeds, and speaking good words leads to personal well-being. That has been proven over and over again throughout history. And personal well-being and happiness, however you want to call it, leads to productivity and success, while negativity, on the other hand, holds you back. Doing harm for a greater good is an intellectual thought experiment that people make over and over again and that does not exist in reality. There simply is no harm for greater good. Many people tried it in communist systems, for example, and no one ever succeeded. You cannot just kill people to create an utopia. People will pay you back for the bad deeds you did. Okay, but what are those things? What are things that always lead to your harm? What will always cause bad results for you? Well, first of all religions in the world have something to say on this one. And a good, rule of thumb is that killing, stealing, rape, or pretty much sexual misconduct of any form, false speech, and, taking substances or drugs that lead to heedlessness, are things that always cause bad results for you, and things that cause bad results for you also cause bad results for society. Society does not exist in isolation. You are part of society. And false speech are things like lying or intentionally, insulting others, idle chatter, and divisive speech. And these things will always cause harm to you at some point. You won't be able to sleep at night properly, and you will very likely have more bad than good times if you frequently engage in such behavior. Okay, but now back to the topic at hand. What did the Buddha have to say on self-improvement? Well, the Buddha even classified behaviors that benefit you and behaviors that benefit others into a hierarchy of goodness. How much benefit does the behavior of you bring? And the Buddha started this hierarchy with the lowest individual. And the lowest type of person practices neither for the good of others and nor for the good of himself. This kind of person is truly the worst among humans. Next on the hierarchy, and this is very surprising for people that do not know much about Buddhism, comes the person that only practices for the good of others. And you really have to think about this one. Why is the ideal of the holy man in the Western society a person that sacrifices its own well-being for the well-being of others? In reality, it does not work like that. When you suffer and do a lot of good for other people, they suffer with you. They see your suffering and they like you, and now they suffer with you. Well, and contrary to popular belief, next comes the person that only practices for their own well-being. In reality, however, it is not possible to only practice for your well-being. You are part of a bigger society, and when you are well off, society is a bit better off. And a person that is happy has a natural inclination to help others. And the pinnacle of this hierarchy is the person that practices for both their own and others' well-being. And why is that so? Why is the middle part of the hierarchy so twisted from a Western perspective? Well, we have a much bigger influence on ourselves than on others. Further, when we are still in a bad shape, we make decisions under the influence of our negative emotions and delusions. We think that we might do good things and beneficial things, but in reality those things cause most of the time more harm than good. Think about all those protesters and looters in the US, for example. Those people are very convinced that they do something good and that they deserve something, while in reality they cause lots of harm and even more hate. And they are definitely under the spell of delusion, for example. And therefore, the person that practices for their own good first is superior. That person creates less suffering for themselves and therefore less suffering for others, because they are not that much under the spell of delusion anymore. But let's now come to a small figure I created to illustrate the point. This one here is called a Venn diagram. The big red circle represents everything there is out there. The bluer, smaller circle, it's not, the ratios are not the right ones. The blue circle represents you and the influence you have on you. You can pretty much influence everything about you. The yellow circle represents another person. And now the intersection of those two circles is the influence you have on other people. The influence you have on other people is tiny. Very, very tiny. Maybe even smaller than what I displayed here. You, on the other hand, influence yourself all the time. You can improve all this area in this circle. While when you focus on other people, you have to focus on these very tiny areas of intersection. And in reality, you can only suggest things to people. They still have to accept the information you give them and put them into practice. There's no guarantee that the things you do will do any good in the future for those people. While on the other hand, if you focus on yourself, there is a guarantee that your deeds will have good results if you do the right things. Do not get me wrong, helping others is still great, but the main part of your focus should be on yourself. And once you are ready, once you are in a good enough mental state, then you can start improving others. Okay, but now to the summary. What have we learned today? First, if we are unhappy and think that we do good, then we should really reflect on things in our lives. If we really would do good things, we would probably be happy. So maybe we are under the spell of delusion, let's say. We should really reflect on our decisions in our lives and see what might cause the harm that we are experiencing right now. Doing truly good things for yourself will inevitably lead to personal well-being. The opposite will always lead to personal misery. If you do the wrong things, you will cause suffering and misery for yourself. The Buddha always said that people that do the wrong things keep themselves in a miserable, maimed condition. They cause their suffering. If they would stop that behavior, their suffering would be much, much reduced. And the next thing is that you first should focus on yourself. You have a much, much bigger influence on yourself than on others, and ultimately do more good to others by causing less harm in the long run if you are well educated and know what truly good things are. And if you are under the spell of delusion and hatred, and think that hatred and partiality and a lust for violence, but only for certain types of people, are a good thing and create good causes for the future, then you are truly a deluded being and are a net negative influence on society. Then you are part of the problem why first you suffer, and second why society tends to be a negative place overall nowadays. And in essence, in summary, the things that are truly good for you in the long run are universally good for everyone. There is no different. What is good for everyone and not just for you, is good for you too. There is no difference between the good for everyone and the good for you. Okay, and that's pretty much it for today. I hope I could convince you on this simple concept. And if you liked the video, feel free to subscribe to the channel and maybe leave a like. And maybe I made some mistake. Feel free to point those out to me in the comment section. And until then, I wish you a pleasant day and goodbye.